What's up, y'all? We are back for episode 7. I'm gonna try and get off of this mic. Somebody dropped me in the comments and was like, "You might be a little crazy," but I'm gonna try not to be too close to it. But if you're new here, please subcribe to the channel. I've gotten a lot of y'all this week. I appreciate all of y'all that have been watching the videos. The videos are starting to pick up traction. I'm starting to get more people. I'm starting to get more conversations down there in the chat. I appreciate all of y'all. If you are new here, please leave the spoilers out of the comments. Please do that. I'm going episode by episode. I have not seen episode 8 as I am literally doing episode 7. I like to watch the episode. Don't do any other watching until I've literally got on here and actually giving you my raw, uncut reaction. So, thumbs up the video. Please do that as well. Please drop a comment down below. The interactions help as well. That does so much for the channel. And I want to hear y'all's thoughts as well. This episode the ending of it was it was a conversation that was very interesting. It was very interesting. It's not much that I typically talk about on a normal day-to-day basis in my life or on YouTube. On YouTube, to be completely honest with y'all, a lot of my content is very low vibrational, so this is going to be a different conversation from most of my actual watchers that watch me all the time. But, we're going to get into it. This was a good episode, though. I liked it. All right, so everybody is pretty much getting up for the day, and I'm trying not to scream. So hopefully I'm not too low or I'm not too loud, but we'll figure it out. But everybody's getting up for the day. Steven and Monica, they're going to a Mexican restaurant today. Marissa and Ramsey's, they're pretty much kissing on each other. Ashley and Tyler, they're loving vacation. Nick and Hannah, they're pretty much talking about things that they could work on. He says essentially that he's impulsive with his thoughts, and she says that she could work on not being as bitchy and being more patient with Nick. You just don't like Nick. That's just what it is. That's why you're being bitchy, because I feel like she feels like he's not the person that she wanted him to be, and that's a you problem. That's not his problem. But Taylor and Garrett, they're being Taylor and Garrett, and we got nothing for Alex and Tim in those scenes at the beginning. But Marissa and Ramsey's, they go on their date. They're going on a boat ride around the sea. It was really nice, really beautiful. That's a beautiful date. They get to see the scenery, sit around and eat and drink, take pictures, soak each other in. They're talking about her experience in the Navy, which I was like, this is foreshadowing for the rest of the episode. But we find out that a lot of her friends are from the military, which I would expect. But like I said, they're sailing around the seas. They see all these big rocks, beautiful scenery. But they're taking pictures and whatever. Alex and Tim, he says that when he had woken up this morning, he thought that he was going home because of all that shit that happened with him and Alex, which, as we see, this is the first scene that we got of them since what happened. So I was very intrigued to see how they are currently, and she ends up saying in her confessional, and she's very low energy, so you can tell she like kind of been going through it. But she says that she's trying to be positive, but taking him, she's pretty much trying to take in him being upset and her having to see him as upset as he was. She didn't know the extent of it until he spoke on it. I'm like, but you tried to stop him from doing it. That's why he was upset. Like, you could have heard what he wanted to tell you and how upset he was about what he was upset about if you didn't go put your hands over his face. Like, that was your fault, Alex. But even though we didn't see it, but just considering what was said and how she didn't deny it, I only believe that what he was saying is true. But we found out from him that he's willing to explore it because she was understanding. She was expressing the willingness to actually listen to what he had to say and how he felt. So essentially, he's ready to give it another shot with her. These two are toxic. These two, I don't feel should make it. I don't feel like they should be together because I don't feel like they're each other's person. Like, the more you see, he irritates her. She doesn't like him. He does certain things that irritate her. They just don't seem good to me for each other. Y'all tell me what y'all think. But she feels optimistic, though. She feels like now that he's willing to give her another chance, she's optimistic to see how it's going to go. They're going ATV riding later on for their date. But she pretty much is like, I know it's kind of like tainted everything that we've gotten going so far, but she's optimistic. But we get to Ashley and Tyler, this couple right here. Y'all already know what if y'all have not already seen what's been going on social media, which is crazy because I literally read his bio and I know he mentioned that he was a dad in the bio, but it completely left my mind when we was watching the show. it's sad because everything that was going on the show just seemed too good, and that's the problem. It was too good to be true. Because it's like when I sit back and think about it, because I didn't think about it until I got on social media and started looking, and I saw people talking about his 3 kids. I'm like, why did he not bring that up to her? And it's like I could say that we didn't see, maybe he did, and we just didn't see it. But as we saw in that super trailer for the rest of the season, she was talking about it and like how she's going to pivot from it. So I'm like, that's a big thing that you needed to bring up to her, because proposing to her without telling her that big news is big, because she needs to be able to choose if she wants to actually succumb and actually be a stepmother to your 3 kids. Like, she needs to have that right, and she deserves to have that right to make that decision. And to you not doing that and leaving a big part of your life out of that, it makes you look bad. And I'm pretty sure she's going to have some type of apprehension in regards to it, but we'll see how they navigate towards it. But as of right now, I'm going to take it in for what it is. But he ends up asking her, like, if she sees herself getting married in 3 weeks. And she's like, yeah, I do. I don't see myself finding any other guy like you. I was like, yikes. It's like every time they do certain things now, I keep thinking about it. But they sit down to eat. They're talking about holidays and like what is it going to look like with us now as a couple. She says once we have kids, they'll have to split it up, talking about like spending time with her family, spending time with his family. I'm like, interesting. You could have stuck it in right then and there, but it's like certain things should have already been talked about. But they start talking about traditions and everything. Ashley and her mom, they make s'mores on the holidays. He mentions wanting to create their own tree ornament. He says like when they have kids, every time it was crazy how kids was being mentioned here. Ugh, crazy. But he says each year we can like deep dive into Christmas movies, and she loves that idea. I love it too. I'm a big Home Alone fan. Y'all let me know which one's y'all's favorites. Mine is 1 and 3. Most people get mad at me for not saying 2. 2 is, I don't like 2. I even like 4 better than 2. But I love Home Alone. I watch Home Alone every single Christmas, damn near every month, the whole month itself. But yeah, I understand those traditions. There's certain things that I do as well during Christmas time. But she likes ugly Christmas sweaters, and they just seem pretty festive. Like you can tell that they both don't. When it comes to the holiday time, you can tell they both get involved. They're very active in that festive spirit. But Hannah and Nick, they're bungee jumping. She pretty much tells him like bungee jumping makes her weak in the knees. The same feeling when we're in love. You don't love that man. You don't even like him. But moving on. Taylor and Garrett, they're at a factory. Moving on. Monica and Steven. She addresses how in the pies he had stated that he was going to get her some flowers. So she's upset. She's upset. And I don't like Monica. I really don't like her now. Like this whole episode like solidified it to me. But she ends up saying that the actions that she thought were going to match the words are not doing so. It's very important to her that those actions match the words, which I mean, I agree to a certain extent, because if you say you're going to do something, do it. But he ends up saying like he was using it as a concept, but not necessarily stating flowers was what he was going to give her. Her body language. She is screaming, I don't fuck with you. Like, I don't like you. The faces that she makes, she can't hide her face. She can't hide how she's feeling on her face. But he looks scared. That's the whole thing. He scared of her, and she just don't like him. But she starts talking about how, like, she's a words of affirmation, acts of service type of love language. And the third love language that she has is gift giving. I'm like, okay. And he says gifts has always been his last, because he wasn't accustomed to really receiving gifts growing up, let alone giving it to other people, because it sounds like his family might have had some financial woes growing up to the point where they couldn't really give people gifts because they have to be able to take care of themselves. Which I completely understand that. Like, I completely understand his positioning in regards to that. But she says then that our financial upbringing shouldn't put space in between them. That is true too. But to me, the way she's coming off is like she wants him to give her gifts every time she blinks her eye. And I'm like, that's a luxury. Yes, as a man, you should be wanting to pamper your woman. You should be wanting to give her things. But the way she's going about it seems a little excessive, if you ask me. But he ended up mentioning how he was going to get her a Kate Spade bag. She goes, don't ever give me that. And she kind of said it under her breath. And then she ends up telling him that she wants a YSL bag. We all know Kate Spade and YSL, they're two different They're two different tax brackets. If you want to get a YSL bag and you can get that, you got some coin. A Kate Spade, that's pretty decent for somebody that's middle class. But he don't know what that bag. He don't know what a YSL bag is. And she then turns around and says that she doesn't want to sound materialistic, but she wants to feel special. I said, so you don't want to sound materialistic, but he said that he would get you a Kate Spade bag, but then you turned around and said, no, I don't want that. Give me a YSL bag. Don't ever give me that. Give me a YSL bag. So if you don't want to sound materialistic, why didn't you accept the gift? You want to feel special. He's thinking about you. That should be what makes you feel special, is the thought. The thought, that's what it is. The thought that counts. Like the fact that he's thinking to get you something, that should make you happy if you really want to feel special. It's clear she wants to materialistically feel special. But he ends up telling her, like, she's right. He dropped the ball, pretty much stating, like, yeah, I talked this big game, but I'm not walking it. That is true, low-key, at the end of the day. But she ends up bringing one flowers again. She's still talking about these flowers. He says that he doesn't want to disappoint her, but it's a lot moving forward with marriage, and he doesn't want to feel like he's forced into doing something, and says that he pretty much says, like, if he's suddenly having second thoughts, he couldn't finish his thought because she jumped in and said, so are you? And I'm like, you can't feel forced. It's like I go back and forth with both of them. I feel bad for him more than I do her. But it's like you signed up for the show. You know what the show is. You know what the end goal of the show is, and that is to get married. So if you're not in that headspace to where you feel like you fully can do that, I don't feel like you need to sign up for the show. And that goes both ways. But she says, are you? And he tries to deny it. But she clocked that he is having second thoughts. Like, you can tell all over his body that he's like, in his mind, you could tell he's like, I don't know if I'm enough for her. That's what I gathered from it. But he's not making eye contact with her at all. That's how you know that he's scared of her. He says that he's not afraid to marry her, but he's genuinely in love with her, but he's just nervous because it's a huge commitment. I'm like, again, you knew what you signed up for. I'm like, these two are too much. They're not going to make it either, if you ask me. I don't see it happening. Even if they get down the line, I just don't see it happening in the real world. But she says, but you were very vocal about how in love you were with me, and you know what you signed up for. That is true. But she's lightly laying into his ass. She notices that his eyes are getting foggy, and they do start getting a little hazy. And he's forming tears in his eyes. And she asks, are you crying? And he tries to deny it, but he definitely was. Like I said, they're not going to work. But we get to Alex and Tim. They're riding the ATVs. They're riding over this bridge, like this thin bridge, high up. Alex is like, hell no. And I'm like, yeah, hell no. I wouldn't do that shit either. But they got across it. She says she trusts him with her life now because he got her over that bridge. I don't believe that she trusts him with her life. But they dock at this ocean. It's a beautiful front. They get to see the water, the scenery. The water looked beautiful. But she ends up feeling like the bridge was kind of like a trust exercise for the two of them. And says he ends up saying that the bridge is like a new beginning to them. They crossed that bridge, got to another side. Let's start fresh. So their vibes are kind of timid. It's still kind of awkward. He reassures her that he still loves her, even though they had that tiff. And he's like, let's just leave it where it is. Like, let's start fresh. Let's start new. She agrees to do so. She then asks him if he's going to come back to the room, and he agrees to do so and says it will be okay. Honestly, like I said, I don't see this one being okay either. I just don't see these two working in the outside world. I don't feel like it's just you see a bunch of headbutting in the future. Like, you can see them butting heads. They're just going to get on each other's nerves. But the couples, they all reunite at nighttime. Everybody's catching each other up on their dates and whatever. You got a scene with Hannah, Marissa, and Taylor. Taylor is asking Hannah if she feels like she's teaching Nick things. This blew me. She said, yeah, a lot. I said, what are you teaching him? What have you taught him? What exactly have you taught him? And she says, I'm sure he'll teach me something eventually. They all started laughing. I'm like, they probably laughing because deep down they know you ain't teaching him shit. Like, you need to go be taught a lot of things. But we get a scene with Ashley, Monica, and Alex is pretty much running them up on the issue that her and Tim had. And pretty much let them know he was packing his shit up. He was about to leave. And she's like, if he leaves, I ain't even got his number. I don't know where he lives. I probably would never see him again. You would, because the show would air and you would find a way to get in contact with him. Let's keep it real. But while they're trying to get this information, fireworks interrupt. So these fireworks are going off. Everybody gets up to go see. Monica goes and taps Steven, who's having a conversation with Garrett, to try and get him to come outside. And she's like, you said you would make up for them flowers. I'm like, so that's him making up for the flowers. Okay. Like, okay. But everybody goes out there except for, it looked like, Garrett and Steven. Hannah and Nick, Marissa and Ramses, those were the two couples that were actually watching the fireworks together. Everybody else was just kind of like sporadic. Like, you got Tyler and Tim, they're watching it together. Alex, Ashley, and Monica, they're watching it together. I'm saying all that for a reason. Monica comes back in as Steven is still having a conversation with Garrett. Ramses is over there now. And she comes up saying so passive aggressive, that was so romantic. Thank you so much for the romance. Being passive aggressive with him. I'm like, you two. I don't want to sound ageist, even though I'm literally 7 years younger than her. But you're 36 years old acting like a child. Like, that's crazy. Being this petty is stupid. Like, he can't have a conversation. Like, you acting like going and standing to watch some fireworks. Like, what? I don't see what the big deal with it. I don't understand what that is. Like, what is the big deal with that? But he's explaining to her that I was mid-conversation, and she walks off clearly bothered. But he's also bothered that she's bothered, which he should be, because, I mean, that is your soon-to-be wife. If she is upset, you should take heed to what she's upset about. But the shit she's upset about, I would not subscribe to. That's just me. But she goes and sits back down with the girls. He comes over and is checking on her. And she's talking about, I'm good. As she proceeds to continue to talk shit, low-key, about him. Like, I understand, like, trying to put on a brave face in front of everybody and not have an argument in public with your significant other. But, like, stop playing in his face. Like, that's basically what she's doing. And it's because she don't like him. Like, that's just what it is. But she's talking about how she's good. He walks away. And she's telling the girls, like, she giving him a hard time over the fireworks. And they're laughing, talking about he's scared of you. And she's like, yeah, he is. And she's also saying, like, she ain't fucking around about him. She's not fucking around with him anymore. Pretty much saying, like, I'm not dealing with his bullshit no more. But he comes back, bringing her sparkling water. He's apologizing to her, saying, like, we were just having a conversation. She says, you're okay. You don't mean that. Like, you don't mean that. But he said, I want to acknowledge it, which is what a man should do. He is acknowledging that he had her feeling some type of way, regardless if it was something petty or not. He acknowledged that. And I was like, that's some real nigga shit. Like, he did what he's supposed to do in that situation. But she then tries to guilt trip him, saying, like, you said you was going to make up for them flowers. Pretty much what I just said earlier. And I'm like, so watching the fireworks is making up for some flowers. Like, I just don't get that. But he then sits there and steers the conversation with Monica and Ashley. Was he talking to Ashley? No, he might have been talking to Taylor. It was Monica and Taylor. And he steers the conversation into, I guess this is what him and Garrett were talking about. And if this is what they were talking about, then I guess it might have been stupid for him to still be standing there. But it's pretty much saying, like, with them being on TV and whatever, people are going to see them. They're going to try and weasel their way into their relationship, whether that's putting their nose in their business or trying to be the other woman or other man. And he pretty much says, like, there's going to be somebody out here that wants to suck your dick. I'm like, random. The way Monica looked, she was like, how did we get here? And I was agreeing with her in that moment. I said, like, how did we get to this point? That's the part about Steven that's funny, because Steven you would think he would be talking about something of substance. But a lot of the time, he'd be talking about shit that just is like, what? This is what she's talking about? But she gets up annoyed and goes talking to Ashley. I'm like, it's not going to work. But we get back to the rooms. Alex, I was about to call her Alexis. Alex and Tim, they're talking about pretty much domestic shit when they get back home. She don't want to cook. He said, like, I'll cook, but sometimes I don't want to cook either. And if we got a DoorDash, we're going to DoorDash. She agreed to doing that. It is what it is. Monica and Steven, he's sitting there buttoning his shirts as he's folding them. And she's sitting there looking annoyed watching him do it. She goes, you button your shirts while you do it? He's like, yeah. And she just sitting there like, screw facing him. I'm like, if you don't like him, just tell him that. Like, it's crazy. He ended up getting into bed, and she's stating that she loves him while still screw facing him. Then they start kissing. I said, if you want to be single, just say that. Just say it. But we get Taylor and Garrett. She's pretty much stating that he makes her feel comfortable going at the pace that they're going. These two taking out Ashley. What's going on with Ashley? Well, Tyler, not Ashley. Going on with Tyler. What's going on with him outside of the show? Watching this episode, Taylor and Garrett and Ashley and Tyler look like the couples that would make it down the aisle. But I feel like Taylor and Garrett could be the one to work. Even though I feel like she might not like him either. But I feel like on paper and the way they're moving, they seem to be the most aligned at this point. Ashley and Tyler do too, but just knowing that there's a big big part of his life that has not been mentioned. I can't say that anymore. But yeah, she's talking about their experience or whatever, and how like the people on the outside world, they just might not understand what they're going through, but it's just because they haven't experienced it. Like, and I agree with that. Like, it's easy for me to sit here and say what I would do in that situation, but I ain't been in that situation, so I don't know. But the next day, everybody is leaving to head back to DC. They've gotten their devices now that they've gotten back home. They're living together now. And it's time to see, like, this is what we're going to be doing for the rest of our life. Let's see if it actually is going to work before it's time to actually go get down that aisle in 3 weeks. But Hannah and Nick, we get a scene with them. They're trying to work their arrangements around with their day-to-day life that they normally do together. She's talking about bringing her dog. She claims that she feels like Nick is going to be somebody that will need to be told what to do, because if he doesn't do it, he won't. I said, what makes you get that about Nick? I'm like, he's grown. I think he's older than her. I'm pretty sure he's been living out on his own. And she's like, well, if the trash, like, do you need to be told to take the trash out? He's like, do you think I would literally put something in a bag full of trash that is full and just put it in there and not take it out? Like, he pretty much like, stop playing with me. Like, that's basically what he was doing. She then claims that she's more mature and more emotionally intelligent than him. The way he reacted was the way I reacted. I said, be so for real. Be so for real. But he ends up saying, like, if you think you're so much more mature than me, how are you going to bring an immature person into your space and live with you? I said, exactly. Exactly. But she then asked him if he can mount a TV. I said, can you? Like, let's just keep it real. But she ends up acting like, she's pretty much acting like he's not grown and don't know how to do anything or fend for himself. I'm like, what made you get that type of idea? It's like she's trying to hoe him low-key. I'm like, I don't understand it. But she then asked him, like, what can he cook for her? Have y'all not had this conversation before? But he's talking about steaks, fish, chicken salad. When he said salad, she looked like she's like, and then she's talking about how she could make a mean bowl of cereal. I said, so what are you bringing to this union? You asking him everything that he's doing, cooking, cleaning, mounting, doing all that type of stuff. What are you going to do? Are you just going to sit around and be pampered? Like, what are you going to do? But she talks about how independent she is, and it's her way or the highway. It would be the highway. But they start joking around and whatever. She claims that she's excited to live with him. He seems like he is as well. Good luck to them. I don't see them working either, but we'll keep it moving. Monica and Steven, they're in their apartment. She's bringing up flowers yet again. They're talking about doing shopping for the apartment, getting groceries, decor. She's talking about all the things that she likes. Flowers. She mentioned sunflowers. They start cheersing it up to being roomies for life. The face she made is the face I just made. But Taylor and Garrett, they're pretty much talking about the beauty in the experience, not having social media and whatever. Pretty much saying, like, when you're stalking the person that you're pretty much getting the person that you're pretty much talking to. You know how when you get in those talking stages, you start trying to find out little things about the person that you're talking to as you're getting to know them. And sometimes you might see something online that might give you the ick. That's what she's saying. Social media is what people want you to see on social media. What you see on social media is not essentially what everybody's life is. Like, you put out on social media what you want people to see. Me, I'm the same way. I put out what I want people to see. That's just what it is. So it's not really a real depiction of your actual life. But she's talking about now we can see each other's social media. So she starts looking through his social media. He's got like fishes and stuff, like fishes. He's got fish up there that he likes. And they're boring to me, but they're laughing and enjoying each other. So it's good for them. They're boring to me, but they're entertaining to each other, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. But Alex and Tim, they're wondering about the bed arrangements because they're in a queen-size bed. No, they're in a full-size bed, I think. Either a full or queen. And I think he had a king at the bed at his house. But she wants to cuddle. He gets hot when he sleeps, so it don't sound like that's something that he wants to do. I can relate to him getting hot. I can't sleep when I'm hot. I can't. I sleep year-round with the fan going 100 miles an hour and barely be wearing clothes. It could be negative 2 degrees outside and that fan going to be going and I'm barely wearing clothes because I get hot. I sweat easily. But Ashley and Tyler, it's funny because they get to theirs and she's pretty much stating that she loves how they both like to sleep at the same temperature, which sounds like it has to be cold in there too because she can't sleep in heat either. But they lay in bed and Tyler's praying over them, praying for their families. And he gets emotional a little bit. And you can tell that she finds that endearing. Like I said, I can't stop thinking about what's going on. But Marissa and Ramsey's, they're talking about wedding planning. She wants to have a black themed wedding. He finds that crazy, as do I. Why do you want a black themed wedding? She feels like he's going to be a groomzilla because he likes specific things, but she also likes the fact that he seems like he's going to be very active in the planning in the wedding. So good for them. But we get a scene with Taylor and Garrett. They are going to meet his parents. She finally gets to meet his parents. She meets his parents, his sister, his niece, and his nephew. They're all there at the house. So she comes in with all these gifts. The mom's pretty much asking to see the ring. Taylor lets them know that Garrett was her number one from day one. His mom, both of the parents look like they sizing her up at the beginning, especially the mother. And you could tell she's obviously very, very protective of Garrett. That's her boy. She pretty much is stating that he's never been one to wear his heart on his sleeve, and pretty much share so much about what's going on in his life. So that's the most shocking thing to her. They then start talking about Garrett being the designated bartender at their Sunday dinners as a family. He then brings up how she essentially is the same way. She's like a mixologist, low-key. Like, she knows how to make drinks. So they're pretty much connecting on what they bond on and what their similarities are. So good for them. But I'm going to try and skim through this because they're pretty much kind of like getting into her, figuring out what she does for work. They find out that she does have a good job that is pretty lucrative. Seems like she's going to be able to keep with that job for a long time. It's a lot of job security. They respect that. But Garrett's mom gets a little bit, she gets impressed also knowing that she's got a master's at Johns Hopkins, but she starts to get emotional talking about how she low-key is scared that he might end up getting hurt. And she doesn't want him to get hurt. She tells her that she doesn't want her to get hurt either, but obviously she really doesn't want her son to get hurt. Seems to me like the parents, they know what he signed up for, but don't really know what he signed up for. And it's just like, they're talking, his sister too, she's talking about how, like, y'all seem like y'all kind of trying to meet a deadline, like y'all kind of rushing to get to the altar. That's the point of the show. Like, they know what they signed up for. It seems like y'all don't. But it gets to the point where Taylor is pretty much reassuring them, letting them know, I love your son. This is what we've been through. We pretty much discussed everything that we want to do outside of the house. Kind of like talked about what we need to talk about as a couple, and we're moving forward. She's pretty much giving them that reassurance. I cannot talk today, y'all. I cannot talk today. But Marissa and Ramsey's, here's this conversation. He's making a meal at the apartment. She comes walking in from work. She notices that he got his hair cut. She loves it. He asked her how her day was. She was in 2-hour traffic because apparently she works and goes to school in Baltimore, and he's in D.C. We then find out that she doesn't want to commute to D.C. because he said that he will commute to Baltimore because she won't do it. She won't come down to D.C. I'm like, so it's called Love is Blind D.C. You're supposed to be in D.C. At least that's what I think. So for you to say that you wouldn't commute to come into Love is Blind D.C., you wouldn't commute to come be with your husband in D.C. It just doesn't make sense to me, but okay. But he's finishing cooking, and because he's cooking as she's doing all this stuff or whatever. But he finishes cooking. They sit down to eat. She says his noodles are hard. The food itself looked good to me. I don't know if it's just me, but it did. But he then starts talking about the wedding situation. So he's like, what are we going to do with the officiant? And he's like, are we going to do a spiritual one, or are we going to do a religious one? Who is going to officiate our wedding? And she's like, she wants a female. She said she don't want a man marrying them. I said, okay. She said, I'll take a man, though. She said it can't be a straight man, essentially. She pretty much said it can be anything but a straight man. I'm like, okay. But she also says spiritual because God can take a back seat. That would not fly with me, and it would not fly with my family. I'm going to tell you that now. It would not. It would not. I said, okay, this is where we're going. So he ends up saying that his mom would choke him out. Mine would too, because she's a Christian, and mine is as well. But she says weddings are for us, which they are. She's not lying there. But she then pretty much like, should we ask our parents? Do you think we should ask her? And he says that he feels like before walking down the aisle, his mom might be okay with just pretty much praying with him, praying over him before they do it. I don't know. We'll see. But we find out that she grew up Mormon. Grew up in a Mormon church. If you don't know too much about that, it makes a lot of sense if you ask me by the way she acts. But he ends up asking her at what point did she realize religion was not going to be a part of her life? And she pretty much says, like, growing up in a church that God was white, my God is black, my Jesus is black. I've only known of that, but y'all believe in whatever God you believe in, if you do. But she says, like, doing that, you start, and being taught white beliefs, you start to believe those certain things. So she ends up saying, like, some of the best people that she's met in her life are Mormons, but she doesn't want it to be a part of her getting married. She doesn't want anything of the church being a part of her getting married. She doesn't want people to believe that they're getting married for religious beliefs. So he then starts talking about his experience growing up in the church. Her body language is starting to scream uncomfortable to me. She's barely making eye contact with him. She's kind of like twirling her food as he's talking. And he says that he still believes in his version of a Christian God. He thinks he does. He feels like that God would not judge him for having questions about whatever's going on within the church. And I guess the word as well. But she then moves to how Barbie made her realize that she's not accepting a man who is for the patriarchy. This is where we start to get intense, because this was intense. But he's shocked that it took Barbie to make her realize that. I said, yeah, I agree with you. But she ends up saying that she had to leave the military behind. And she says that people don't realize that the brainwashing that goes on with the military. Let me pause y'all right here, right now. I'm going to literally talk about what they're saying. I'm not one that is super educated when it comes to this lifestyle. So I'm ignorant to it. I'm not going to talk too much or throw too many opinions into it because I don't want to offend nobody. And I am not in the business of speaking about stuff that I don't know, because I don't want to talk about things and look like a fool on here when I don't know. So I want to start that off. But she talks about how patriotic she was. And he's like, so where are you at now with that? And she's pretty much stating, like, I can't completely look at it horribly because it did change my life. But she doesn't support half of what the military does in other countries, which, from what I can understand from her positioning, seems to me like the act of actually fighting for the country in the sense of unaliving people and taking certain people's lives away from them. That's where it seems like she's gotten that trauma. That's what I see her perspective. Because I see both ends of what both are trying to say. I'm more so aligning more with Ramsey's when he's speaking, but I also see her perspective. But it's hard for me to say she's wrong for feeling the way she does because she experienced it and I did not. But let's keep it moving. She then says that she can't look, like I said, I already said that. His body language, as she's saying this, is now starting to look uncomfortable too. He's looking at her like, oh, okay, this is how you feel. So he says how he will always heavily critique how the U.S. goes and destabilizes entire countries. And I certainly agree with that to a certain extent, because I know we're fighting for our country, but I feel like the United States kind of does butt and put their nose in other countries' business when I don't feel it's necessary, because I don't feel like other countries would do the same with ours. That's just my thought behind it. But she says that she supports how we need the military because she feels like we bullied other countries to the point where we put ourselves in a hurt position. She then tries to get to the point of saying, like, she supports the troops in the military, even though she's critical of it, and she supports them because what they signed up to do is not easy. I agree with that. And that's the crazy thing too. I always feel like, well, let me say, I'm going to save it till we get to it. But he ends up saying, but they sign up for it. And I'm like, yeah, that is true. Like, they do sign up for it. She says, yeah. Like, she's like, yeah, I can't say anything else besides yeah. But she says it's a job for some people, but they sacrifice a lot. He then says again, but they sign up for it. That is true. But she says that she didn't understand the gravity of it when she first did it because she was younger. She says she didn't sign up to go unalive people, even though she signed up for the military. And he's looking at her like, but that's what you signed up for. Like, he said the Pow Pows, can't say certain words on YouTube, the Pow Pows aren't just there for no reason. Like, you should know what you're signing up before you do so. And I agree with him in that. Like, that's the positioning I see with him. He's like, you essentially know what you're signing up for, and you should know what you're signing up for. Like, if you sign up for the military to serve, you should know what you're getting yourself into. That's kind of where he's coming from with that. But she then says that she feels like she might have been naive at that moment. You were. But when she got into that position, when she had to be the one to push a button to launch a missile onto a ship that would blow it up, she struggled with that. And I can completely see why she would. Like, thinking like, okay, I'm fighting for my country, but I'm also hurting people that, to my mind, is innocent people. And that in a lot of cases, most of them are innocent people. It's just a war, like country versus country. So essentially, she's doing her job to protect her country, but I see where she's struggling with the idea of actually going out there to possibly end up taking other people's lives. I see that. But she says that she pretty much says that she doesn't feel most of the younger adults, whenever they start doing it, don't understand what they're really signing up for. He clearly don't agree with that. Like I said, I do tend to agree with him, because me at 18 years old, if I was told that I needed to go sign up for the military or whatever, I wouldn't do it. Me, I've always said, even at 29 years old right now, I always say, and I would have the utmost respect for people that serve for the country, that go to the military, the Navy, the Army, all of those armed forces. I have the most immense respect for them. But me, I could never do it. I always say, take me to jail. I couldn't do it. Like, it's just me. Maybe I'm selfish, but I just could not do it. I couldn't do it. I would rather go sit in a jail cell than to do that. But he says, okay. And she's clearly uncomfortable. She says she feels judged. He apologizes, because you could tell in the moment she was trying to state her piece, but you could tell she was kind of uncomfortable. And you could tell he was wanting to hear her out, but hearing what he was hearing was kind of throwing him off. You could tell he wanted her to continue to talk so he could really hear where she was, what her positioning was on those topics. But she questions if she's a hypocrite for being anti-military when she signed up to go do it. And he said he doesn't want her to feel judged, and says that he doesn't question how great her heart is. And she's like, I'm feeling uncomfy. Her nose starts to get red. You can tell she probably got emotional. But they dried, well, I don't want to say they dried up her tears, but they weren't there whenever that part finished. But she says, like, you were someone who, she pretty much says, like, if you were someone that was impacted, say somebody set off a bomb and your house blew up or whatever, and you happen to be one of the ones that made it out okay, and you're sitting next to me and I'm sitting here looking at you knowing that I'm the one that did that, I wouldn't be able to sit in front of you and state that I support the military. What did she say? She said I wouldn't be able to sit in front of them and state that she supports the troops, because she was a part of something that ends up unaliving people. And she's pretty much stating, like, she supports them. See, this is hard. It's hard to talk about this. I'm literally, this is the first time I've ever been on YouTube and have been trying to watch what I'm saying, because I don't want to say anything stupid, and then I don't want to offend anybody. But you could tell at least what I feel like she's saying is, like, she respects them for actually being courageous to go out there and do what they need to do for their country. But the part where she doesn't want to say that she supports is supporting innocent lives being taken away. That's what I'm gathering from that. But she then says too, like, she knows that he doesn't like her military service, and said, like, you probably wouldn't have been engaged to me 2 years ago. And he's like, I probably wouldn't. And she's like, yeah, I know. And he said, like, he wanted to get to know her in the pods beyond her military experience, which is good. Like, you do need to know more about her, but also that's a big part of her life as well. So you do need to know that as well. But she lets him know it is a huge part of her life, considering how long she's been involved. She says she's been involved, I think, since she was like 16 years old. But she lets him know that she doesn't regret it, but she supports the troops. She then says that she doesn't want it to be something that he's ashamed of. But I'm like, to me, it sounds like something that you might be ashamed of. Like, you can tell she's struggling with the fact of what she was out there doing or possibly had to do, which is why she wants to kind of like detach herself from it. That's what I gathered. But she doesn't feel like she can handle him being ashamed of her service. And he says, like, he doesn't want anybody to feel ashamed about their past as long as it's in your past. And she says, like, she tried to do the reserves, but she couldn't be back in that environment. But if she was, he probably wouldn't want to be with her. And he was like, yeah, no, it wouldn't work, because we would be in two completely different places, and it ends very, very awkwardly. And I was like, okay, they setting the stage for these two to possibly end up not working either. So that's a bunch of couples that I'm looking at right now that I'm like, I don't know if it's going to work. I do not know if it's going to work. I struggled through this recap with it, but hopefully the next one tomorrow, I'm going to try and get the both of them out tomorrow. But if you got through this, you a trooper, because I was struggling. But please thumbs up the video. Please drop a comment down below. Please thumbs up the video for me trying. And subscribe if you are new. I will see y'all next time, which will be tomorrow. Peace.